The courtroom was buzzing with the usual tension of a high-stakes trial. Lawyers shuffled their papers, the defendant sat nervously at the table, and the air was thick with anticipation. But then, something unusual happened. A teenager, no older than 17, walked through the doors. His sneakers squeaked against the polished marble floor. He wore a simple jacket, his hair slightly messy, and a leather notebook tucked under his arm. At first glance, he looked like a kid who had wandered into the wrong place, perhaps there to watch out of curiosity. Whispers quickly spread among the audience. "Is he lost?" One woman whispered. "Whose kid is that?" Another murmured. Even the judge raised his eyebrows. The boy walked calmly to the attorney's table and sat down, his posture upright, his expression calm. His eyes scanned the room with quiet determination, though no one could understand what he was doing there. To everyone else, he looked out of place. But there was something about him, something in the steadiness of his gaze, that unsettled the room. The judge cleared his throat, his tone carrying the authority of someone used to complete control. He peered over his glasses at the teenager. "Well," the judge said with a smirk, "did you lose your way to the school library, young man?" The courtroom erupted in chuckles. A few attorneys shook their heads, amused. The boy, however, didn't flinch. He opened his notebook, calmly flipping through the pages, as though he hadn't heard a thing. The judge leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. "This is a court of law, not a classroom debate. Unless you're here to deliver sandwiches, I suggest you take a seat in the gallery." Laughter rippled again through the room. The teenager's ears turned red, not from shame, but from something deeper. Yet he still refused to answer the mockery. His silence spoke louder than words, and for the first time, the chuckles in the courtroom began to fade into curiosity. Moments later, the defense attorney struggled to question a witness. His arguments were scattered, his evidence weak. The judge sighed impatiently, clearly losing faith in the defense's case. And then, unexpectedly, the teenager stood up. "Your Honor," he said in a steady voice, "I have a few questions that may clarify the testimony." The judge almost laughed. "Oh really? And what could you possibly ask that the trained defense cannot?" The courtroom leaned in, waiting for the boy to embarrass himself. But what followed silenced the entire room. The teenager's questions were sharp, precise, and carried a depth of understanding far beyond his age. "Sir," he asked the witness calmly, "on the day you claim to have seen the incident, where exactly were you standing? And if you were facing the storefront, how could you have seen the alley behind it?" The witness faltered. His confident tone wavered. He stammered, tried to answer, but the logic was undeniable. His statement had a clear contradiction. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. For the first time, people stopped laughing. The judge's smirk disappeared, replaced by surprise. What had begun as a predictable trial suddenly shifted. The teenager stepped forward with documents from his notebook, copies of case files, evidence photographs, and highlighted passages of legal precedent. He spoke with confidence, his voice calm yet commanding. "Your Honor," he said, "the prosecution's timeline doesn't align with the witness testimony. In fact, the evidence suggests otherwise." The opposing attorney frowned, flipping frantically through his own notes. How did this boy have access to details even he had overlooked? The judge, once amused, now leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he listened carefully. The authority in the room had shifted. It was no longer the judge or the senior attorneys commanding attention, it was the teenager. Murmurs spread across the gallery. "Who is he? How does he know all this? This can't be real." But it was real, and the longer the boy spoke, the more undeniable his brilliance became. Frustrated, the judge slammed his gavel lightly. "Young man, this isn't a stage for showing off your memory. You're undermining the process." The teenager didn't back down. He looked straight at the judge, his expression firm but respectful. "With respect, Your Honor, justice isn't about age. It isn't about titles. It's about truth. And if the truth is being overlooked, then someone has to speak it." The room went still. Even seasoned attorneys, men and women who had practiced law for decades, found themselves silenced by the teenager's words. It was bold, almost too bold, to speak to a judge that way. And yet, it wasn't arrogance. It was conviction. For the first time, the judge didn't know what to say. Behind his stern expression, something shifted. He had mocked the boy, dismissed him, but now he was forced to see him for what he truly was. Finally, the truth came out. The teenager wasn't just some curious kid. He was a legal prodigy, part of a groundbreaking mentorship program where extraordinary young minds were allowed to shadow top attorneys in real trials. But this boy wasn't just shadowing. He had memorized the case inside and out. He had studied law obsessively for years, reading textbooks late into the night, mastering arguments that even adults struggled to comprehend. The judge's eyes widened as the defense confirmed the story. He's not here by accident, Your Honor. He's here because his insight has already cracked cases most of us couldn't solve. We trusted him, and now you see why. The judge, stunned, sat back in his chair. The courtroom, once filled with laughter at the boy's expense, now buzzed with awe. By the end of the trial, the boy's questions and evidence had shifted the entire case. The truth came to light, and the verdict changed. The defendant, once on the verge of losing everything, was given justice. As the gavel fell, silence filled the courtroom. Then slowly, a wave of quiet applause rose from the gallery, breaking the heavy air. The judge cleared his throat. He looked at the teenager, the same boy he had mocked just hours earlier. Perhaps, the judge admitted softly, we have much to learn from the younger generation. The teenager didn't smile or boast. He simply gathered his notebook, nodded respectfully, and walked out with the same calmness with which he had entered. For him, it had never been about proving the judge wrong. It had been about something bigger, the pursuit of truth, the defense of justice, and the belief that even the youngest voice could make a difference. And that day, no one in that courtroom would ever forget the teenager who walked in mocked as a child but left recognized as a genius attorney in disguise.